please do two things. Would you tell the story, how you write about it on your first night, and then what happened the next day in the welcoming ceremony, the comments made, and then what actually occurred by the time you finished your 4-year?
Sure, I'd be happy to. So,
okay.
I was very big into being prepared for West Point. Every piece of information that was sent to me, I read through it, and they told us to go out and buy low-quarter leather shoes and practice polishing them and wear them to school so they'd be broken in. So I was the only kid in high school wearing black leather low quarters with their blue shoes. So I did all those things in preparation, memorized a lot of military slang, and so the first night when we went down to West Point, they at the historic hotel there, they separated us, and all the kids that were going to be the new cadets, we were kept in like the dormitory rooms off to the side of the hotel, and then our parents, they were put in the regular rooms of the hotel. So we kind of split ways around 9 o'clock at night, and one of the things in the information was get a good night's sleep, because that first day at West Point is going to be one of the hardest days in your life. And anybody that's ever been to basic, no matter what service, listed or officer, anybody's been to that first day of basic knows what we're talking about, right? I mean, it's all unknown, and it's just a hard day.
Right.
So I go to my dormitory room, and I meet the other 3 girls that are in there, and I'm ready to go to bed. I mean, it said, get a good night's sleep, and that's what I plan on doing. Well, those 3 other women, they just talked and talked and talked. And one gal, all she talked about was she wanted to be, at some point in her life, she wanted to be a politician. So she's just talking politics. Remember, I came from a country town with no traffic lights. I didn't know anything about politics. I had no desire to talk about politics or be a politician.
Mm-hmm.
The other gal, very much into science, and her goal in life was she wanted to be an astronaut. And I thought, wow, okay, I don't know what that has to do with West Point of the Army, but it's interesting. And then the third girl, she was more of a partier. She was kind of in and out of the room all night, partying with other cadets. And it drove me nuts. And as I laid there and tried to go to sleep, I thought to myself, I've made the wrong decision. I mean, if this is the cream of the crop and this is who's coming into West Point, they made the wrong choice when they selected me, and I made the wrong choice by coming. So the next morning, I went to my parents' room. I knocked on the door about 7:15 in the morning, and my mom looked at her and she says, "You're early." I said, "I know, but let's go. We need to go." And my mom goes, "We need to go." And I said, "Yes, we're going home." And my mother goes, "We're going home?" And you have to understand that my parents taught us 2 rules to life. Rule number 1, don't quit. Rule number 2, refer back to rule number 1. And so my mom says, "Hey, you can't quit." I said, "Well, I haven't officially started, so I really wouldn't be quitting." And so she said, "Well, what happened?" So I explained to her what happened the night before. Well, my mother, being the great motivator and coach and influencer that she is, she said, "Let's just drive around West Point. Let's just settle down here and think about this. I think you're really making a mistake if you don't at least try, if you don't at least start." So we got on the bus. We went to the football stadium, and all the families and all the new cadets are sitting there, and the cadre come out, and they start to talk about West Point and what to expect over the next 4 years. And then they say to everybody, take a look to your left and take a look to your right. 3 out of every 4 of you new cadets will be gone by graduation day. And I thought, oh, my goodness, they're going to run us out. We haven't even started yet. And in those days, West Point was was based on an attrition model. They expected 40% attrition out of every class. So I sat there and wondered, well, wow, I wonder if it's going to be me. I mean, am I going to make it? And then they say, okay, parents to the right, new cadets to the left, and off we go to start our 4 years at West Point. Well, 4 years later, those 4 women in that room that night, I was the only one that graduated.
Yes. Any way you can quantify how difficult that was for you as a female soldier breaking through this barrier that had been there for 200 plus years. And is there any way that you can quantify how that felt and what it meant to you?
Well, it meant the world to me to have the opportunity. As far as how it felt, I mean, a couple of things. Number one, that first year at West Point is very, very difficult and demanding on everybody, men and women. So, but what happens, of course, is because traditionally it was all men. By virtue of the fact that I was a female cadet, I was female cadets were easy targets for an immediate reason to haze you, right? I mean, I can't have a woman walking down my hallway, so you figure out another way to get to class or another way to get to your room, but we can't have women walking down this hallway, So things that the upper class could pick on with you, of course, are different than what they could pick on with their, with my male classmates.
Mm-hmm.
The old saying, that which doesn't kill you makes you stronger. I am a very positive person. The cup is always half full. And so when I'm presented with chaos or when I'm presented with something negative, I work very hard to see the goodness in it. It's the same way with people. If I'm dealing with someone who's just really hard and really bitter, I'm looking for the goodness in them, the potential in them, because I think everybody has some. So, when those things had happened to me, I just looked at ways to show them that they're not going to get to me. Because if they get to you, then they've won. And I wasn't going to give them the joy of winning. So, I think I'm a very creative, innovative person to go, well, then I'll find another way to get to class. I'm not letting that stop me,
Mm-hmm.
But it can be humiliating. It can be, it's not a cakewalk. It can be very, you want to quit. I mean, at the end of the day, if you look at my journal, my tiny little journal from West Point, the first 3 days are on the first page. Now, when I say tiny little journal, this is like a 3-inch by 2.5-inch journal that they gave to us, so you could write down what the menu was and how many days to graduation and those sort of things. So it wasn't a big journal. Matter of fact, it was so small because women had no pockets in their uniforms. I would stick that in my knee sock so I could carry it because you were expected to always have it, but you weren't allowed to carry it in your hand. So what are you going to do? Well, carry it in my hat or carry it in my knee sock. So, I had it. They're always trying to look at ways to get you, but the first 3 days are on the first page, and I say, I hate West Point. I hate West Point. I want to quit. And I miss my family at every meal, and I want to quit. So, I definitely wanted to quit. You get nowhere. You and I would not be enjoying this conversation and this interview if I'd quit, right?
That's right.
And I think people forget when they quit, that they're really shortchanging themselves. And so, I'm glad I didn't quit all these years. But, it wasn't easy, no. But my grandmother used to say, you stand your tallest when you're on your knees. And so when things are hard, what do? Well, you depend on yourself. You depend on others. In my case, I depended on God, my faith. And I think that made me stronger. And candidly, I never knew I was 5'1.5". I never thought about it. I thought other people were tall. I didn't think I was short.